is Dan, and I have been here since the beginning, almost 20 years. So, yeah, my blood, some would say, is green, this color green. My kids just call these lines on my head, they don't call them wrinkles, they call them my edge forehead furrows. So, pretty much since the start, I've had the title, a bit daunting, of CEO. And for those of you in this room who share the title, you know that evolves in terms of what it does on a daily, weekly basis, although generally it just means that you get the most emails. Or maybe the E stands for escalation, Chief Escalation Officer. But having been at Edge since the beginning, we started this business with a bold idea. We believed that our vision was we would grow SMEs, we would create jobs, and we would grow a nation. That evolved over time to a business that is scaling SMEs for world-shaping impact. And it was just a small team in the beginning, and we believed that through supporting great businesses, we could really create livelihoods and we could change lives. And so if you fast forward almost 20 years, I suppose, you know, you've got those awards, and sometimes it feels like you only get those awards if you're the sponsor. It's almost like a participation award, but the awards that say that we're one of the most successful impact investors in Africa. Apparently I must put that on my LinkedIn profile, #blessed. But actually that's the vanity. And the sanity is the fact that we are invested in over 100 businesses currently. We support many hundreds more through our solutions business, and I see some of the team here. We manage over 8 funds, and we have between 50 and 100 investors who trust us to be custodians of their capital and have a shared vision of inclusive growth. So today we're here really to share some conversations, to celebrate our collective journeys, maybe to have a laugh because this journey is not easy. I guess you might call us VC with a twist. We don't just believe in capital and returns, we believe in catalytic capital. For the reasons I mentioned, we do deeply feel that if you are able to empower entrepreneurs, you can create jobs and you can really shift the system. So just on a personal note, I want to say that I feel like a bit of an imposter when I stand up at these types of things. So even though I've been at it and been an entrepreneur for almost 20 years, as I say, you almost never really feel like you belong or in any way you've made it, and you really, you know, the roller coaster ride doesn't change. Maybe you've got a slightly fancier seatbelt and a well-maintained maintenance log, but you know, still there are the ups and downs. So when I say that I can share that with the entrepreneurs in the room, I truly mean it. But let's kick this off with the first real speaker, who needs no introduction. Literally, he told me he does not want an introduction. So I'll just say that he is a celebrated chef. He is a global speaker. He is very much driving transformation in everything he does, and he's a visionary leader who really helps people unlock their potential. Please, can we put our hands together for Miles Kubheka.
So, good afternoon, everybody. How you guys doing? Thank you. So, how many of you remember this advert? So, how many of you thought Vuyo actually existed? I know you couldn't hear it, but I'm sure you remember the ad, though, right? So, how many of you thought Vuyo existed? Cool. So did I, actually. So I'm a systems engineer by training. I was working at Microsoft for about almost a decade, traveling the world, getting paid really, really well. But every time I come to a guys in the township, I'd hear the kids going, "Oh, Vuyo is such a big, big dreamer." I was like, who's this Vuyo guy? So I promptly Googled to discover there was no Vuyo. Totally a fictitious character dreamt up by this advertising agency in Cape Town, I think after smoking some green stuff. So I promptly trademarked the advert, and I became Vuyo from that day. And it's so interesting, like, when I started opening my restaurants, people would come up to me and say, dude, I saw the same ad. I may even wanted to do what you did, but I didn't. I started getting asked this question as to why did I do something about it when clearly everybody had exactly the same information, but other people didn't do anything about it. So I started asking myself, Maravele, why did I do something about it? And the only logical conclusion I've come up with to date is that as long as I can remember, my mother has always said to me, don't be an also-ran in life. If 5,000 people set out to run a marathon, 4,999 of them are there to serve to legitimize the winner. They are there so that there's a number one, essentially. So she said, go out, change the world, stand for something, be somebody. And I remember thinking to myself, lay off me, woman, I'm only 3 years old. But if you are raised by a single mom, you know there's lots of pressure, right? And that pressure was definitely there. And so I remember telling her that I'm quitting my high-paying job to go sell boerewors rolls in the local Fourways Farmers Market. She was like, oh, Mtanami, what about medical aid and pension? The same woman who said I must go change the world, right? And she doesn't sound like that. But the point is, I learned that people don't do anything epic because of fear. And often it's not even your own fear, it's other people's fear. It's the people who care about you the most, whose fear is the most weighty, if that makes sense, right? Because you take it more serious because they care about you and they're thinking, hey, this one, after all those years of studying, now he's going to sell boerewors rolls. Where is he going left instead of going right, kind of thing, right? So I didn't listen. I figured, I will figure it out. And it turns out leadership, that's all it is. It's figuring things out. That's what leadership is largely. And I'm not sure how many of you are parents, but when you become a parent, you realize that, your parents didn't know what they were doing either. They're just figuring it out, right? And that's what I learned about being a leader. It's just, you said it best, you're chief escalation officer, all the bad problems come to you. So when I started at the Fourways Farmers Market, not far from here, my first executive decision, I remember as clear as day, we bought that grill. No, you can't see it. Maybe I've gone. We bought this grill here, on the day, and we bought it at Game. It had legs. My first executive decision was I wanted to remove the legs. I wanted to put the grill on the table so I can have my customers in front of me, so I can cook and see the customers. And because it was a lesson I guess I'd learned at Microsoft to always have your customers front and center. So I think it subliminally stuck with me. So I removed the legs and we put the grill on top of the table, only to realize the table is made out of wood. It's like, oi, it's not rocket science what we were doing, but cooking with gas and a wooden table, that's not going to work out, right? So we found those concrete slab things, those walking stones, stepping stones. We put that between the grill and the table and we start cooking. This is week number 5. Peter, the guy in the previous picture, turns around to me. He goes, Miles, we're on fire. I go, I know, look at the crowd. He goes, no, we're on fire. It turns out he forgot to put the concrete slab between the grill and the table caught alight, making this massive flame. And I looked up, the shade netting above us was made out of plastic, so it was melting, creating this massive hole, and the flames were vortexing out of there. And I looked down and realized the floor is made out of wood chips. It was lit, as the young people would say. I've subsequently studied as a chef now, and one of the things I'd learned at culinary school is that things don't always go according to plan, and you gotta be comfortable with that. That's why every chef says, in order to make an omelette, you gotta be comfortable and crack some eggs, right? So, but for whatever reason, a lot of people are fearful of doing anything new or innovative. It's like, it's scary, right? And in this room, everybody knows that that's what you gotta do. But generally, everybody outside this room doesn't know that you have to crack eggs in order to make anything epic. And one of the things I'd learned was that, actually, do you know that on average, when a child learns to walk, they fall on average 17 times an hour? The child doesn't go, maybe this walking thing is not for me. I've mastered crawling, it's efficient, I can move from here to here. They keep getting up. And that's the one thing I've learned from running a business, is that whilst I'm going to be giving you a highlight reel here, but there's so many micro failures and even some big ones. But the trick is you just keep getting up and just keep going, surviving the day. Just survive today. And then before you know it, you survived enough days that there's more of them behind you and hopefully some good ones ahead of you. So speaking of which, one of the things I'd learned about what I do is when you innovate something, it's not an end state. You don't get to a point and go, "Wah, I've innovated." Innovation is what you do on a daily basis. And by having my customers in front of me when we put the grill and I could chirp them and could see which boerewors they were buying, that allowed me to see which one wasn't doing so well, and we would improve it by using the top 2 selling ones' revenue to improve the least selling one. Make sense? In fact, that was a lesson I learned at Microsoft. It's called software update. You release your product before it's great, it's 80%, and then you use the revenue from your customers when they tell you where you suck, but they've paid you for it, and then you use their money to improve it. So that's what we did. When we started with this dodgy looking one in the middle, my mom's secret recipe, chakalaka on a boerewors roll, but it pumped. It was amazing. It was a dream. And then we added the 2 others, and you can see they were very suspect, but they tasted amazing. And then version 2.0, you can tell I'm a systems geek, like everything. So by the time we got to version 3, you can see the great improvement. And the innovation there was that we cut the roll vertically, because the base of the roll is harder than if you cut it sideways, because then when you fill the stuffing, the roll just falls apart. That doesn't sound like an amazing thing, but to us, that was a micro innovation that changed our business model, right? So tiny things like that. By the time we got to version 9, this one, we're winning awards. This is a 115 Rand boerewors roll. Yeah, go figure. Black guy selling 115 Rand boerewors roll. Okay, with fries, but still, 115 bucks, right? And it turns out all we needed to do was sprinkle some sesame seeds, right? and then they, thank you. And then the hipsters, the guys with the shiny beards, the hipsters will come up to us, they will go, "Yo, dude, is it gluten free?" I'm like, "Yo, dude, at 115 bucks is whatever you want it to be, right?" And they would buy. And then obviously I started at the market, but I didn't want to end at the market. I wanted to have a bricks and mortar store like everybody. I wanted to stand like this and say, "Look, Ma, I made it." So we found this amazing site in Braamfontein. And I remember when I saw the site, the store, I literally heard the angels and the harps. It was, I was like, "Yo, we're going to print money here." I was like, So I signed my lease on the 12th of the 12th of the 12th. Thought that was a good binary omen, 121212. I mean, I was a geek. And then we launched on the 27th of December, Boxing Day, and day after Christmas. So as a geek, I thought I needed a hello world moment. The world must know that we've arrived. Like when you write your first line of code, you must say hello world, right? So we got 4 snow machines and we made it snow. And it's day after Christmas, it was overcast and it's snowing. These snow machines kept on tripping power because they used 3-phase power, but I didn't care. And there was load shedding, but I didn't care. It kept on tripping. But people, it was full. It was like this. People were eating poikies, mushes, pumping, and the energy is amazing. I'm like, then the next day, not a single customer. It's Braamfontein, after all, it's December. All the Zulus are back in KZN. And the Xhosas are in the Eastern Cape. There's no one in Braamfontein in December, right? So I'm sitting there, my tables are lily white like corporate South Africa, and I'm thinking, to myself, "Oi, how did I get here," right? And my staff is looking at me like, make a plan. Like, I don't have a plan, bro. I don't know. I'm in systems. I'm in IT. What am I doing? Food. I don't know what I don't know. So I'm sitting there. So I decided to call up the Sunday Times and I said, "Hey, listen, would you be interested in hearing about how we made it snow in the middle of an African summer?" The journalist went, "Meh," and he hung up. But I still have nothing to do, So I decided to write the article about how we made it snow, and people were eating umushu, and it was packed and full. I used these big lines, and I embellished, and I type-faced it, used this byline, PDF, attached a picture, emailed it to him. The journalist calls me about 20 minutes later with a bit of a smirk in his voice. He asked me 1 or 2 questions. At this point, I think maybe we make it to page 189 on the Sunday Times, and it's a very thin one in December, right? Guess what? That Sunday, 4th day after our store's opening day, I got a call from Robbie Brosen, the founder of Nando's. We were on the front page of the Sunday Times. He WhatsApped me. I was like, "Yo!" And I ran to go get the Sunday Times. And the only thing that the journalist did right, the only investigative journalism, in fact, the only thing he wrote. You see this bullet point here? That's the only thing. I wrote that. It even says picture supplied by, right? So he wrote this little paragraph, but it was some amazing piece of investigative journalism because he called SAB and he said, hey guys, there's this guy called Miles, he's taking your brand, he's opening restaurants, what do you guys think? And SAB said, well, if he's got the kahunas to do it, good luck. I'm paraphrasing. But the point is, I learned an important lesson there, and that is, in life, it is often better to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission. Because had I asked them, they would have probably said no. And now that I had done it, it was like, well, this is what it is kind of thing. So before I knew it, that article then gets picked up by other journalists because they're lazy. In Kandla, you don't have to look for it. It lands on your lap and you write the story. But your good story, everybody's good story who's in this room, is harder to find. So by me writing the story and surfacing it, others had picked it up because they have to balance the media. It can't be just the negative things, right? But because your story is harder to find, they don't find it. So by me writing it, everybody started picking up to balance their own media cycles. So when I appropriated the SAB brand without compensation, they had spent 40 million rands on the brand. By the time I was finished with all the free marketing and PR, I'd increased the brand equity by another 60 million rands. So I owned a 100 million rand brand and I hadn't spent a single cent on advertising. And the scary thing about when you go do radio interviews, they call you in and they're chatting to you. Next thing they say, let's open the lines for some callers. Yo, do you sweat bullets? I don't know what the callers are going to say. You don't know. One caller can and this guy calls in the one time I'm in this studio. He says, hey Miles, I was there by your food truck. I couldn't decide what I wanted because they all looked so great, all three of them. But I wanted this one, but I wanted this other one. And so I couldn't decide. And your guy could see I was stressing about it. So he just cut them into thirds and made me one. Right? No, indeed. And I never taught my team to do that. But they felt so empowered because the philosophy of better to ask for forgiveness and permission empowered them to make the decision. Because the person who's closest to the customer should be the one who has the most power to make the decision. And here I am on a national radio station, a customer is saying good words about us. I didn't even do anything, right? So if you take anything from today, empower as closest to the people who are interfacing your customers. Don't think because you're the leader, you should have all. Dude, do yourself a favor. The more you empower people, the less you have to do. Otherwise, what happens is people escalate problems. It's just, in fact, I call them escalators. All you'll do, you'll end up being a chief escalation officer. And you don't want that. It's just not the best utilization of your time. So before I knew it, I started meeting some really interesting people. That's Sir Richard Branson to you, Rich to me. That's how I roll, and others started wanting to have selfies with me. They invited me to go to meet Trump to discuss the refugees. I said, no thanks. But Braamfontein, like I said, is a tough town to run a business. We're breaking even. In fact, you don't start a business to be behind the 8 ball. We're doing okay, but we're not shooting the lights out. I couldn't have chosen a worse site. Students drink their money, they don't eat it. I had price for students, and yet my customers were lecturers, so I was leaving money on the table. My shop was just glass all on one side, which meant in winter it's super cold, in summer it's super hot. Either way, I'm always running the aircon. No one teaches you that stuff until you're in it, right? So it was like a total baptism of fire. So now we're sitting with my team. I'm like, hey, bruh, we are struggling here. Technically, not even technically, we were failing. People call it pivoting now, make it sound sexy. Pivoting, aka failure. We were failing, right? And it's even harder to admit you are failing as a black entrepreneur because it feels like everybody's watching. You know what I mean? It's like, when abokango tuzophelela kind of thing. I thought it was me, but the years are telling me, people feeling me, So I used to thought maybe it's a chip on my shoulder, but no, it just honestly always felt like people are just waiting for your failure date, right? So that was super hard. It was like, I can't tell you, failure is visceral, it's gut-wrenching, it's not half pregnant, you feel it, it's real, right? So now, I don't know what to do. I don't have a blueprint. I don't have a memo. And in fact, ironically, it was around the same time I actually met Mdu from Edge Growth. How ironic that so many years later, the wheel circles. And I was having very, contentious issues on how do we move forward. Because even if I raise money, I doubted myself now, do I put that money on another bricks and mortar store? I thought we were going to print money here. So I'm now really doubting myself, like imposter syndrome is real. I mean, I got it wrong. I thought we were going to do it well. And so I'm like, I'm not going to take more money and get it wrong again. So that's when, like I said, I met Vuyo and the team. And I started saying, one of the things I realized with the Vuyo's videos, Vuyo actually started with the food carts. We sort of missed that step. We went from the market to the bricks and mortar. So maybe a cart costs like 25 grand to do, and we can do more from doing that than putting up bricks and mortar store. So that was my logic, and I leaned into that. And it turns out South Africa has got an amazing natural resource of young unemployed youth. So I figured, opportunity. So I found these young unemployed youths, gave them these amazing red polo t-shirts, proper, the real stuff, not the Chinese stuff that you wash your car with, when they start doing this, the real stuff. And the unintended consequence of giving the team, the young unemployed youths, these bright red t-shirts and calling them Vuyonaires, they stood up straight. They had so much pride. And then, our swag increased. We then had caps. We started making more on the swag. We had like hoodies, caps, and all of this. This became a different SKU, a different business opportunity, just because the guys were so proud. In fact, they became evangelists. They would tell anybody who would listen that Vuyo's rocks, right? And so that was in 2013. That's Beyonce having their Hive or Taylor Swift with the Swifties. We were doing it before, I'm just saying. Be honest, we rocked it then. So we went to these big retailers and we said to them, look, you've got these dodgy guys outside your stores selling boerewors rolls. Look at our guys, bright teeth, our product is amazing. And then the retailer would say, well, those dodgy guys are actually our staff members. So that was awkward. But luckily they saw the light and they allowed us to put in our guys. And before you knew it, our guys are doing between 50 and 60,000 rands a month selling boerewors rolls at these big retailers. The best part about that is that they were self-employed, so I paid no salaries. The space belonged to the retailer, so I paid no rent. And then they would make our wors and our rolls for us on our recipe, because all these big retailers have a butcher and a bakery. So we'd give them our recipe and they would make, so we kept no stock. This was the holy grail. We have paid no salaries, paid no rent, and our stock was on consignment, essentially. This is pre-Uber. I had an asset-light business pre-Uber. I'm just saying, I'm owning it, Hey, when it's a story, you can tell it the way you want to tell it. I'm sticking to mine. And it was super amazing. From struggling in Braamfontein to all of a sudden, our restaurant in Braamfontein being a central kitchen, distributing the stuff. The thing that I didn't realize would be an unintended consequence, I would drive around with gas canisters, the 9 kgs, because I don't know when the gas will run out. And I would tell the guys, wait, check if there's gas every morning. But if it's a thin guy and he's lifting, he thinks it's heavy, so that didn't work. So I'm driving around with these gas canisters. I kept falling asleep at every traffic light. I didn't know. I thought I had narcolepsy or something. Turns out, no matter how sealed a gas canister is, it's not a good idea to have 6 gas canisters in a car. Not a good idea, right? I kept on falling asleep at the traffic lights, and the hooters I thought would just snooze them, but it turns out it was a problem. So then the store owners or the retailers figured out how much we were making, and they kicked us out, and they put in their own guys back, right? So they kicked us out. So Azulu Makaplan, so I co-founded an association of food trucks called the Mother Truckers. So all those trucks are like R1 million, 600K. Mine is an old VW Combi, 125K. So we moved now from 25K carts, we moved to the food trucks at 125. You can see the steps, right? At 125K, we found these old VW Combis. We cut off the roof and we sold our boerewors from there. And we use VWs because VW stands for Vuyo's Wors, obviously. Or my personal favorite, Volkswagen, So, as you can see, we ran queues longer than Capitec at month end. And the reason for that, as a systems engineer, I worked at that people don't stand in an empty anything, right? People are sheep. They stand in a queue because they assume that the guy in front of them must know why the guy in front of them is standing there, right? In fact, I think that's why it's called leadership, right? So what I would do is I would stand here and I would whistle to my team lead, because I worked out that people stand in a queue 19, 20. Above 20, they'll go to the empty one. They'll drop off. It's too long. But also, they don't stand in a queue this long, get to the front and buy one. On average, they're buying 4, right? So what I would do is I would whistle to my team lead, and he would speed up or slow down the queue based on whether we were below or above 19. But our queue always stayed around 19 or 20 deep, because energy begets energy. And you know what I'm talking about. So if you go to your office, there's that person who just sucks out the energy. You don't want to go. I used to have this staff member. I would park outside in my shop and psych myself up to go in because I was so afraid of her. She just sucked out the energy. You know, I was afraid of my own staff member. You know what I'm talking about, right? There's people like that, right? And then there's people who enthuse you and suck, push in energy, and that's the people you want. Like, oh, I would have a waiter who would just drag their feet. I'm like, Joe, you got one job. Move your own body. Like, I can't help you if you can't move your own body, right? So, but energy begets energy. Otherwise, it just gets sucked out of the room. So when I launch new restaurants, this was our Vilakazi Street restaurant, I'd get my cousins, aunts, anybody would come, and I'd sit them down, and I would give them the food, but they can't eat it until the real customers are like, oh, what are they having? Oh. And then an hour later, I would reheat it for them, then they can eat. No free lunch, right? Energy begets energy. If you're going to launch anything, you think Apple, those cues that are when Apple launches a phone, you think that's natural, organic? Yeah. Please. He's laughing because that laugh was personal. Then in 2019, I sold Vuyos, and it was around the same time It was around the same time when the president came on TV and said it's lockdown, it's COVID. But I had sold the business about 6 or 7 months before COVID. I dodged the biggest bullet in hospitality. And the sad part, no, I don't really tell this part. When I sold it, I didn't want to sell it. You know, I had these guys who promised the world. I was like, but look, and then all of a sudden, I'm now sitting doing spreadsheets and I'm no longer in the store growing, it wasn't. So I said, I like getting things started. This is not me. So I exited, they paid me out and I left. But now I'm half pregnant, when I walk around the street, hey, Vuyo, but I'm not Vuyo anymore, and now I'm sort of young, and now I'm semi-retired. Like, what do I do? All right? Came earlier than I thought, and I didn't think through. I don't have a plan B. Then I happened to watch a movie called Black Panther, and in it they had a city called Wakanda. And I watched the movie, and I was so inspired because this was the first time I watched a movie showcasing Africa on such a positive light, on such a global stage. Right? I was like, the Avengers, Spider-Man, Iron Man, everybody's coming to Africa to steal our technology. I was like, this is the Africa I can get behind. This is the Africa I know we are, right? So I left the movie house and I promptly trademarked the word Wakanda. Vuyo's worked out well. Why not rinse, repeat, recycle now on a global stage? And that's exactly what I did. I trademarked the word Wakanda. And then about 18 months later, I get a call from Disney, who owns Marvel Studios. And they were in post-production on the sequel to Black Panther, which was going to be called Wakanda Forever. And in their post-production was when they discovered that I now own the word Wakanda. Long story long, my lawyers, their lawyers, backwards and forth, we settled on $3.5 million that they paid me to use the word Wakanda. Thank you. I'm kidding. Or am I? It's called NDA, people. I can't confirm or deny. But around the same time, like I said, it was COVID. So we had built this beautiful accelerator in downtown Joburg, and I essentially wanted to help other entrepreneurs to avoid some of the speed humps I'd gone through in my journey. Make sense? So I built this accelerator, beautiful kitchens for food and beverage people, and that's when the president said, stay at home. But I've never been one to ask for permission, so we printed those essential services certificates. You remember those? Photoshop is your friend. I was printing them out like this, and my chefs and the entrepreneurs, we rolled up our sleeves and we went to the communities we come from, and only to discover there was no food, right? We went to Alex, Deep Sloot, all these places, there was no food. So we started rolling up our sleeves and our entrepreneurs started feeding the communities and so forth. Then an organization called SA Harvest that rescues food from big retailers saw us doing what we're doing and said, look, we are rowing towards the same direction. Come and join our board. They rescue food from retailers, we can help cook it and so forth and give it to community-based organizations. And that's actually what we started doing. And it's now, this slide is outdated, it's now 5 years and we've done just over 100 million meals that we've given to communities from the day we started with COVID. Yeah. The interesting thing, thank you. So for me, the challenge was, how is it in South Africa there's so many people who are hungry when we're a food secure country? And the truth of the matter is, guys, like you, I lived in a bubble. My world was, it just made sense in my world. And I come from Ekasi, so you think you know, but you don't know. Because just because you're black, it doesn't mean you know. Because there's labels to this thing, right? And I discovered that during COVID, right? So, and I was like, Mara, what? I mean, South Africans, we riot on toy for everything. I've never seen a food strike. Turns out people don't strike for food because it's embarrassing. It's admitting that you've failed like proper. It's like your last rung of failure. So people starve silently. 19 million of them go to bed hungry every night. So knowing this was like, well, how do we solve for this? Because it bothered me as an entrepreneur, because when you arrive to help people, they're super excited to see you. It's called toxic charity. They're super excited to see you. They're happy to see you. And it's also an amazing feeling for you. It's actually a very selfish thing to give because you get more probably than the recipient. And then, so people are super happy to see you. And then there's anticipation. When are you going to come back? When you come back, there's like, okay, so we'll see you on Thursday. When you rock up on Friday and so you didn't come on Thursday, they're like, hey, where were you yesterday? Now all of a sudden there's entitlement. But can you blame the people? You've shown them that you are reliable, you're consistent, and you're solving their problem. So of course, people are going to wait, right? Like the escalator scenario, it happens at every level. It happens at society level. People wait for government, people wait for the employer. Everybody is always in a perpetual state of waiting for someone to remove them from the challenge. So it creates what is called a dependency scenario. So how do you solve for that now that you know the problem? So my team and I sat down and we did some research. It turns out a 20 kilogram bag of maize meal works out to 7.50 Rand a kilogram, right? In a 20 kilogram. So that's economies of scale. We all know that. We buy it in bulk, when you leave it in your pantry until it gets weevils and so forth. And it applies to almost every product, right? But that means a half a kilogram is almost twice as expensive. So food is twice as expensive the smaller the pack size. But that means poor people are subsidizing middle class and upper end people, right? It's called poverty tax. And so when you're poor, the system is designed to keep you there. Unintentionally or intentionally, you are going to stay there because food is more expensive if you are poor, right? And it also means you litter more because you're buying too many small pack sizes. So that's why most townships are essentially filthy, because you're buying a lot of small pack sizes, but you don't also have refuse removal and all these things compound, right? And I was like, no, this can't be. I mean, this makes no sense. But it's almost true for everything, from rents to, and I'll show you another example later. So the question was, well, then what is the solution when you know the problem? So we sell everything at unit item. A tea bag, 50 cents. An egg used to be $2, 3 rands now. Price of eggs is a real thing now. It's not just a saying. So we sell everything at unit item. So if you've got 135 or 114 cents and you want to buy flour or sugar, whatever, we'll sell it to you based on the amount of money you have, not pack sizes. And it's doing so well that now we weigh the money too, because people pay us in coins, so might as well weigh the coins as well. So economies of scale, get it? Scale. Sorry, I can go on. I've got so many scaling jokes. It's not even funny. So this is how dark it is in Alex. Did we lose power? That's literally how dark it is in Alex. Right? So yeah, this is how dark it is. And I've already told you about Gwalisa 3.0, where we found young unemployed youths. We gave them bright yellow t-shirts, G-Star ones this time, because Gwalisa. And we sell load shedding electricity at 5 rands per load shedding hour. And like I said, it's just been an amazing insight that we wouldn't have otherwise had if we weren't involved, right? So this is what our new stores look like now. From where we started from here, now we're here kind of thing. Actually, I need to put that as a track. So with that, I'd like to say thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. In terms of what? In terms of... So we've got over 1,000 people who want franchises. Like every day, we're generally getting about 18, 19 people wanting a franchise. And we've made a conscientious decision that we're not franchising it in the short term because people can ruin a good thing. And I've opened restaurants, so I know how quickly people can ruin a good thing. Before you know it, because we're a brand, it just takes one person to ruin it for everybody, and then you're on the front page of the Sunday Times, and there's no department at the Sunday Times where you can go back and get your reputation. Just one person ruins it, and now it's Gwalisa's. It's no longer spaza shops. You are you're in the crosshairs. And it was so hard to make the decision to my board. I was like, no, we're not doing that. And they were like, but we can scale 10 times faster and all of that. I was like, no, we're not going to do that. They're like, dude, you're being stupid. And then kids started dying over the last year. And now it looks like I was a sage on stage. But sometimes the journey of having lived a lived experience prepares you for your next chapter. And it's hard because it's like moral high ground is expensive real estate. Like, for example, we don't sell unhealthy stuff at the shops. There's no chips, there's no fizzy drinks, there's no cigarettes. So by consequence, we make a third of what we should make. So we're saying goodbye to 2/3 of revenue, which also would help us scale. But we've made a conscientious decision that we will not add to killing the communities we come from. There's enough people that are doing that on our behalf. On their behalf, not ours. But I'm answering those things just to say the other reason is we put Gwalisas in community-based organizations. So these mamas who've been feeding kids for years now have a revenue-making mechanism beyond just doing the charity stuff. So we look for those mamas because the community trusts them and all these things come into play. And that's why the security, and that's why it wouldn't make sense for them to steal from themselves. So I said a whole lot, but I'm hoping I've given yeah. Ma'am?
Interestingly, my question is also around scaling up.
Yeah.
Many 1 rand 35s and for milli meal and 5 rand for electricity is not gonna scale up very quickly. So how and when do you decide on your scale up strategy, and what kind of volumes are you at, and are you trying to get to actually benefit from your scale up operations?
Again, as a systems engineer, one thing I know about scale, pun intended again, is that if you don't know what you're doing, you'll scale the problems along with it. To me, what we're doing is not a bug, it's a feature. We're intentional about taking our time. Spaza shops are 100 years old. I haven't invented any rocket science. Anybody can do this, theoretically. But what they can't do is the last 3 years of insights that we've got, right? So the point of 10xing them and scaling fast and scaling the same problem. Now I've got people in Mpumalanga who are sick supposedly from our product, and you don't have the SOPs to prove that, no, can't be from us, and you haven't put in all the hard work. That's what kills businesses. And we've seen how many businesses that were everywhere in the last 2 years that don't exist anymore, that scaled super fast. So for us, it's fully intentional, albeit it's also painful because theoretically, everybody wants scale. And it's even more harder for us because the gut-wrenching letters we get from customers or people who want to put up Gwalisas, they say, they write essays. So it's needed, if you get what I mean. It's not even just someone saying they want to enrich themselves. In fact, funny enough, more often than not, the request is people who wanting to do good for their own community than self-enrichment. No one, in fact, of the requests, no one ever says, how much does it make? I've never been asked how much does it make by any of the people who are applying to have one. So, yeah, but we'll probably come up with a social franchising method to be able to achieve for that in the midterm. Yep.
Hi, my name is Neo Diale.
I know.
So listening to what you're saying, you're effectively saying you don't want the growth of the business to be the death of your business by not 10 timesing as you put it. But what is the trigger? At what point do you say now, okay, I've got into a place where now I can, start scaling up? Is there a place where you need to be for that to happen? Because I'm imagining anybody who's taking that decision is cautious of the fact that you don't want to take on too much that will, blow in your face at some point. But what then would be the trigger for you to move on to it?
Good question. And the short answer, we don't have all the answers just yet. We're figuring things out for the most part, to be honest with you. But there's things that have been an unintended grace. When I started, I went to all the big manufacturers of products. I said, look, we've got this thing. And I had access. I'm a second time exiting entrepreneur. I've got a track record, right? So I've got access. Yeah, you sit in those boardrooms, you can see that the lights are on, but there's no one home when you start. Because I'm talking about one container in Alex. These guys work in pallets, tonnage. I'm here to tell them about one container in Alex for dispensing. Like there's everything counter to every big business model. So they were like short of laughing me out of the room, bruh. Like, it's gut-wrenching. People don't know. Like, and I can see it. I'm not dumb. I can tell, that the math is not mathing for them. Like, even if they wanted to help me, they physically can't because there's no mechanism that would allow them to distribute to me. But I need the distribution so I can buy in volume to decrease the prices even more to make my model even work. Tried for 2-3 years. You go to stakeholders, others, I won't mention names, like in other sectors, you rock up, you say, this is a model for township retail, in considering how township retail looks like. No one listens. Then kids start dying. You have no idea how many knocks we are having to deal with. But that's the thing about entrepreneurship. It's 90% luck, and that luck is determined by timing. So what we have is just 3 years of run rate. Like we started running before everybody. And so when these things happen, it seems like it's coincidence or whatever. It's just that the timing and what we've done just coincides. There was the big retailers. The manufacturers. They basically said no. In fact, they blue tick you. So I don't know if it's technically no yet because they just don't come back. But what that did, and I'm oversharing here because I'm amongst other entrepreneurs, I was told to lay it out and bare. There's no filter, right? What happened though was I started empowering other entrepreneurs. I was like, this lady came to us and said she makes detergents. I was like, they want Omo, they want all these branded stuff. And it was true. When we started, people were very brand conscious. They wanted those brands, right? But that was just after COVID, pre-war. When the war kicked in and things got really, really expensive, believe it or not, people are willing to try stuff now that's not a branded product. Before, it was too expensive to try a new brand because if you've got your last 5 rands, you're not willing to take chances on something you don't know. It's your last 5 rand. So you want something that's going to give you what you expect, right? But after the war and all these prices kept on going up, people are trying new stuff. So now Tosh, who supplies our detergents, she's been there with us and she's doing exceptionally well as long as she continues to make sure that the product is good. So now our supply chain, believe it or not, is other black young startups as opposed to big manufacturers. So it turned out so far so good. I don't know how else to put that. I don't know how we're doing for time, but I can take... Okay, one more question.
How many locations, sorry, Sammy
Sammy
Rabolela, how many locations are you in and how are you trying to be in the same place? So are you all in Alex or how many different townships are you in right now?
So we're in Alex for now and then we've got a number that we need to hit and then we move to the next township. And there's reasons for that, secret sauce. There's reasons for that to do it that way as opposed to trying to be everywhere at once. Cool.
Maybe as a last question, have you read a book for
And there's a lady here as well.
Have you read a book that's called Fortune at the Bottom of the Pyramid?
No. But we don't call it the bottom of the pyramid, we call it the base of the pyramid. Because it is the base that's holding up this country, if you ask me. But I will look it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Vuyo.
Hello.
My question is, what is the biggest leadership lesson have you learned through your journey?
Sure. I've learned so many. But I think there's two. But the first one would be to listen with your eyes. Has been a game changer for me. And once you know how to do it, you see opportunities everywhere. And for example, when you listen with your eyes, it takes humility. Don't think you have the solution. Just shut up, have humility, and watch what people do. Because if you ask them, you do market research and you ask them questions, they'll tell you what they think you want to know. And then you'll have a do-say gap. There'll be a gap between what they actually do and what they've told you. So you'll solve for the wrong thing. But if you shut up and you have the humility and you watch what people do, like we sell a lot of sugar in tea bags, like a ton, like 10x more in magnitude than any other product we sell. I was like, that's a lot. Like, who's buying this amount of tea and sugar? Security guards. Every morning when they go to work, because they sit in those boom gates, they only have a kettle, and maybe a bathroom if they're lucky, but they're never seen as part of the company. So they don't go inside. So what they use the tea bag is a vector for the sugar. So the tea bag is just to color the water, essentially. Right? It's actually not funny, it's sad. Right? It's like, and I mean, insights like one mama told us like we should sell diapers. I'm like, Ma, we sell what goes in, not what comes out. He says, and also, I don't know much about kids, but I know they're using more than one diaper, like per day, per hour. She says, no, if they do a number one, we put it in the sun, we dry it, and we give it back to the kid. If it's a number two, repeat step one, dust it off, put it back on the kid. Right? Like, this is now, 2025, on our watch, this is happening, right? So, listening with your eyes has been, and then the last quick one would be just empower the people who are closest to the problem. Cool. I'm going to say thank you. Thank you very much, everybody.